Welcome back to the starters. I am Dave Trentadue. That over there with the nice Chicago Bears hat is, of course, Simon Tsalikis, and that is George Caperis. How's it going, boys?
I'm doing well.
How you doing?
Good.
You're right, Dave?
I'm always all right. I'm always
what
all
are you
right.
eating, Dave?
Well, that's classified information, but little Easter eggs, little chocolate Easter eggs. You know,
Wow.
keep the energy level up. You know, that's what it goes. I know. I might need some EA Fitness after this episode. All right, so don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and subscribe to us on YouTube at the Starters 690. We're trying to do some fun content there, so keep your eyes peeled. We're going to have some maybe some giveaways, some fun stuff, some fun games and stuff. So be sure to follow us on all of our accounts. And be sure to listen to Simon and Joey Alfieri every Saturday and Sunday on TSN 690, 7 to 9 a.m. At the Starters. All right, question number one brought to you by Club CDL. Visit clubcdl.com. They have a great tennis summer camp going up. So if you don't know what to do with your kids this summer, send them to tennis camp. They have a cool pool there and an indoor soccer field that Simon knows very well, and beautiful clay courts, outdoor courts, and hard courts as well. So send them there. Check it out at clubcdl.com. All right. So NFL free agent has opened, and pretty chaotic first few days. I mean, so much movement. So I just want to know, guys, who's a winner and who's a loser?
Let me go with I'm gonna go with the loser, and the Carolina Panthers continue to liquidate really, really good players for second round and fifth round picks. And I'm not certain what they're trying to do. It just seems like every single year they part ways with talent. Started with Christian McCaffrey, and that continues. Look, I can't say anything about Bryce Young. The guy survived somehow 17 weeks of football last year, and part of that was, will he survive because of his size and all that? Not a very good O-line. But I don't know, just to continue to liquidate yourself of talent and not make some type of move, some type of progression. I don't think there's again, when I say they're the losers, I don't think it's terrible losers here or anything, or somebody's really ran away with everybody else. I just don't get the mindset when it comes to the Carolina Panthers. Kind of use the Canadians as a comparable, right? It gets a little bit frustrating for Suzuki and Caulfield when you trade Monahan, you trade, maybe Matheson's in play or whoever. You can't keep voiding yourself of talent and continue to walk into that locker room and ask your guys to go balls to the wall. So I'm not going to say they ran away with it, but I just don't like the moves in Carolina. Do you want to go with your loser and then we'll go back to the winner there?
Sure. My loser is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'll tell you why, as crazy as that sounds, because they signed their two best players, right? But the issue is, did they get better? And I don't think they got better. Did they get worse? No, but they signed Baker to a pretty big contract, which they're going to be handcuffed to for the next couple of years. They retained Lee Evans at a substantial number for a receiver. Although he's been productive, he's getting up there in age. I don't know where Tampa Bay goes from 9-7 with these two guys with a harder schedule making the playoffs. So I think Tampa Bay might have been the year where they had to pivot. They didn't pivot. They decided to keep it going for a couple more years. I don't like the moves long term. I don't think that's going to be a team that we're going to be talking about in 2 years from now, where we're saying, well, what a great year they had in free agency. So as crazy as it sounds, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if you let me go with my winners, I'm going to say something crazy here. I'm going to say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the winners because they retained their two best players. And it is crazy to say, but I just think they're in that kind of weird middle ground, Simon. And they didn't know what to do. So they ended up signing their two best guys, but I don't think they got any better. They didn't get any worse. They had to do it. It's kind of a weird thing, man. I haven't seen many teams do this where they get, an aging receiver that had a great year, but he's getting up there in age, and a comeback kind of player of the year in Baker Mayfield, and say, let's run it back without anybody else. Let's not get anyone else that can help this team. let's just run it back with this 9-7 team with a soft schedule, or 9-8 team, and hopefully it works. So weird answer, but a weird move. So that's my answer.
Dave, can you check the starters rule books? Is he allowed?
Yeah. I don't know. I was leaping through it, and initially I'll have to look into it. But that was
I saw you guys weren't happy, but I was like, I have to do this. I got to do it. All right.
Well, we'll let it slide this time.
Well, it's fair because if they're, like their record, just a game above 500, you're not winner. You're winners, I guess, but you're not losers. But you're not like big time winners. So.
That's what I mean. It's kind of, I don't know. So it is what it is.
All right. Simon, you have a winner?
I think it's easy. I think it's the Atlanta Falcons and the addition of Kirk Cousins for whatever reason, because he's an easy target. With you like that commentary leaving the field when he was a member of the Commanders or Redskins at the time. And he became a butt end to all jokes. He couldn't win on national television, although last time I checked, it's an offense, a defense, and special teams that walks out there. It's not just one individual. Kirk Cousins gets your best players the football, and he gets it to them in space. He gets it to them when there's no space. He moves the sticks. It's very simple. Over 4,500 yards of passing, and can even make a run at 5,000 if things line up. Adam Thielen was a primary target. Then it was Justin Jefferson, a primary target. He did it in Washington as well. Different coaches. I'm not going to say much of a different system, but different coaches. He gets the wide receivers. He's excellent in play action. He gets his backs involved as well. Super. And, I watched some of that Netflix, the quarterbacks and stuff like that. Super, super popular with his teammates. He's one of those raw, positive guys all the time. I think that resonates in a locker room. I think that's exactly what Atlanta needs. And for those who thought that it was, don't get me wrong, Justin Jefferson is elite. But when Justin Jefferson stepped out of the lineup because of injuries for the Minnesota Vikings and before Kirk Cousins got hurt, go look at Kirk Cousins' numbers with guys that weren't really household names at the wide receiver position. 300-yard games, multiple touchdowns, he moves the sticks. So with the Robinson and when Pitts came out of the University of Florida, he was supposed to be the next big thing. He was supposed to revolutionize the tight end position. It hasn't worked yet, but I think it will with Kirk Cousins there. So I'll say that the Falcons are the big winners here in free agency.
And for some reason I said Lee Evans, but I was referring to Mike Evans. Although Lee Evans, great English actor, by the way. So
wasn't he a wide receiver too, Lee Evans?
I don't believe so. No, he's a great English actor though. So.
There was a Lee Evans, wide receiver. He played for the Bills, and he played.
Oh, there you go. So I had that in my head. All right. So, but I was referring to Mike Evans. So
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I think
all right. Fair enough.
All right, then. When we're on the next question, we'll keep it within the NFL-ish, but it's brought to you by Cunningham's Pub, which is obviously a big weekend coming up for them in the Irish society world. And last year at the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Hudson, I must say, they handed out full bottles of their sauces, like full straight up bottles.
Nice.
They're worth like $8, and they're just handing them out to everyone. It was amazing. So very good stuff there. They had John Sleeman, like the founder of Sleeman Beer.
Really?
At Cunningham's Pub.
Have that Honey Brown? I remember that Honey Brown beer. I still like it.
The clear.
Yeah.
I always like the clear.
Well, there you go. Well, he was at Cunningham's Pub last week. So, I mean, you never know what's going on there. They have all sorts of cool things, some live acts there too. So check them out, Cunningham's Pub. Follow them on Instagram and check them out on Facebook as well. All right. So basically, Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if you guys heard this news, being mused on perhaps as reportedly being considered as Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s running mate. So, I mean, it's kind of maybe not out of left field totally, but I guess my question would be, I don't even know how to formulate this question. Just can you be an elite Hall of Fame bound quarterback and also in the same vein at the same time run for vice president?
Guys, listen, I think we kind of all went through it with either somebody we knew or a friend that kind of just, I don't know, lost their mind somewhere along COVID there and just decided that they were just going to go off the grid somewhere. And I mean, I just don't get it. Like he was talking about just the week before how the Jets have to put all the distractions aside, and anything that's not about winning needs to be completely eliminated. So I don't understand it. He seems he's an interesting guy, I'll say that, but I don't know how much of it is a shtick and how much of it is actually Aaron Rodgers. The guy that went to Cal. He went to Cal, right? He was in Cal. So I mean, I don't know. It's crazy to me how he's off the charts crazy sometimes. That's the only way I can put it. I really don't get it, whether it's his dark room or just all the stuff that comes out of his mouth. I sometimes I just have difficulty following it. I don't understand how it helps the New York Jets win football games right now, and how it's not a distraction. So not a good idea. He doesn't have a chance in hell in becoming the vice president of the United States of America. So I'd say, yeah, thumbs down on this one.
All right. Simon?
This came out a couple of days ago, and he still hasn't said anything. And now there's some stories coming out about him being like a Sandy Hook. He doesn't believe it happened. He believed that everybody involved was actors and stuff like that. I don't know how well that's going to roll in a football team that is less than probably a 2-hour drive or a 90-minute drive for where that happened. I believe in Connecticut. So I don't know how that's going to resonate with your fan base. I would imagine it doesn't. If I'm the New York Jets, I cut this guy immediately. Why? This came out 2-3 days ago. You should have killed it the moment you came out with it. Now, I don't have, I played some pretty decent football. I had some friends who played in the National Football League, and we still text this and that, and I was asking him about the inner workings of a locker room. And I'll give you, like, what they always tell me about. It's like no other sport. And it's hard for them to say, they've never been in an NHL locker room or an NBA locker room or MLB locker room, but specifically the dynamics of a football locker room, specifically the quarterback. If the quarterback is not all in, you're done. Go back to that documentary I watched on Netflix about the quarterbacks. It was Marcus Mariota, Kirk Cousins, and Patrick Mahomes. All three of those dudes were all in. One was the best player in the league. The other guy's a very, very good football player and continues to work at his craft. And the other guy was, I'm not going to say a journeyman, but trying everything he possibly could to stay on in the National Football League. You have to be all in. One of the times I remember I was doing TSN 690 with Mitch Gallo and Rod Francis. And we were talking about Colin Kaepernick and how he was trying to just be more than a quarterback and trying to help out his community and try to be a greater good and being righteous. And it's fantastic. It's great. Except that when you're the quarterback of a football team, the quarterbacking priority is first. Trying to make, unfortunately, as silly as this may sound or as ignorant as it may sound, trying to make a world a better place, number two, after being an NFL quarterback. So for me, if I'm the Jets and I'm looking at this and this egomaniac just wants to be in the national spotlight and to be part of the conversation, to me, that he's not focused about being the starting quarterback of the New York Jets. He should have cut this off a long time ago. The moment he came out and said, thanks, but no thanks. My priorities are with the Jets. Got to make the playoffs. I'm getting paid an obscene amount of money, and I need this to work. Well, not for his legacy or anything like that. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But if you're in the National Football League and your quarterback is not locked in, priority number one, being the quarterback of your football team, you are going nowhere. Jets should cut him tomorrow because he hasn't said that this is nonsense and I have nothing to do with this and I will not take part in this in any shape, way, or form. Call the Bears, go to get Justin Fields for a third-round pick and start your tenure with Justin Fields as your quarterback. That's what I would do is out the Jets specifically. And by the way, I'm a Bears fan. I hate the Packers. There's nobody that I've seen throw a better football in my life. He's one of the 4 or 5 best quarterbacks. So this has nothing to do with talent. Has everything to do with focus, which I think he has none of anymore.
Wow. All right. That's a great answer. I guess one more question to both of you. Who would be your running mate if you were running for president?
Joey Alfieri, because there's no dirt on this guy.
Love it. That's a good.
I'm going Gordon Ramsay. He'll cook me something to eat at least if we don't win.
Gordon Ramsay. All right. No one said me, so I guess those are both
Too much dirt in me.
Dave, you're too good for politics, Dave.
Fair. All right. So question number 3, we're going to move on to hockey for the rest of the episode, but it's brought to you by a new sponsor here at the Starters, Christina's Cuisine. Christina Cuisine. You could check them out. I've been checking out their menu, guys, and you can check them out at christinascuisine.ca. And I mean, it's solid. It's solid. They have.
I've heard good things. I've heard a lot of good things, Dave.
It's in Chamonix. I mean, right around Simon's. Simon's hood. He knows it best. But I mean, their menu is absolutely loaded. Their meals look spectacular on Instagram. You can follow them at Christina's Cuisine. And I mean, they have all the heavy hitters. And I mean, it's not just gyros and souvlakis. I mean, they have legitimately everything. I mean, I mean, look who I'm doing a show with here. I'll let you guys speak a little bit more on the Greek cuisine. But Simon, what's your go-to there?
Well, the one thing we love about it, and it's literally on Notre Dame and Elizabeth. I grew up on Notre Dame and 100, which is probably 200 yards from front door to front door where I grew up in Chamonix. But it's just there's a lot of restaurants that can do pitas and they can do a whole bunch of stuff. Like you said, they can do, gyro and everything else with that. It's their home specialties. Like they got, George in the kitchen. He's got his mom in the kitchen. He's got a team of people in the kitchen. And we're talking about fresh Greek, authentic meals done on a daily basis. Sometimes you get there a little bit early because if you get there a little bit late, there won't be any more. But everything is done on site. Dave, you know it better than I do. A lot of people live and die by their Google reviews. And if you just go check out the Christina's Google reviews, they're literally off the chart. So I highly suggest it. Even open for lunch. Best way to get in Fridays and Saturdays, usually a lineup. So maybe call in advance, but every other day, not a bad fix. But I would highly suggest trying to take it in for the first time for lunch. You'll absolutely love it.
And you're not kidding about the Google reviews. I mean, it's very rare to see someone with such a high rating and nothing but good reviews all about it. So that's pretty cool to see. So check them out, christinascuisine.ca. Check them out on Instagram as well. They have a Facebook page and their food just looks absolutely amazing. All right, guys. So the NHL Trade Deadline has come and gone. The Habs made a few moves, nothing too wild. Jake Allen being shipped out, probably being the most, the notable trade if you don't count the Sean Monahan one. So I just want to know, guys, who won the NHL Trade Deadline?
I'm going to go with, I'll go with 2, and I'll maybe break it down to 1, but I'll go with the finalists of last year's Stanley Cup final. I thought the Vegas, the Hanifin was a brilliant move. I think Alec Martinez will be back, but he won't. He's a UFA, I believe, at the end of this year, so they can already slide Hanifin probably if they like what they see into that spot and continue with him going forward. I love the fact that if they can get back into a wild card spot, they get the Oilers. If they, into a top 3 spot in their division, they'll probably get the Oilers. If they're a wild card spot, they're probably going to face the Colorado Avalanche. Or Vancouver Canucks, and there's nobody out there that's going to allow you to outscore any one of those 3 teams. But what you can do is what you did to most of the teams here is out defend their opponents. That blue line 1 through 6 was absolutely brilliant last year in the postseason. I think it got that much better with the Hanifin acquisition. We're talking about 6'2", 220, can skate, can do a whole bunch of things. So I think that's great. And I love what the Panthers did as well with the Tarasenko. Just add a little bit more goal scoring with their, they got their group of guys that can, their top 6, but now they can distribute a little bit more some of that goal scoring, perhaps through their bottom 6. So I like that move as well. But if I had to pick between the 2, I know it's just one player and it's not a guy that's ever hovered at a point a game or anything like that. But I like the Hanifin acquisition for the Golden Knights.
Listen, I have to echo the sentiments of Simon here, not only for the Hanifin acquisition, but Anthony Manta is a big boy. He's made to play in the playoffs. You pick him up, and you get Thomas Hertl. You just got much deeper. This is a big team. They got big guys, 2, 3 big players that play a big game. The Vegas Golden Knights are going to be a problem in the playoffs. There's no doubt about that, you know. And that first round matchup, I believe, is starting to look like the Oilers is who they're going to end up playing. And if you end up with the Oilers, you're gonna need to be big, and you're gonna need to slow down Connor McDavid. And that was the recipe last year, right? Every time Connor McDavid would touch that puck, he'd get hit. And they went and picked up 3 guys that's their game. All 3 of them have like a little nasty side hurdle, probably the least of the 3, but still a skilled player. I just love everything they did. If I have to go loser, look, the New Jersey Devils are a mess. Not only did they fire Lindy Ruff, but they've been flirting, I think, in the last over 12 months of trying to pick up an elite goaltender. So they tried to get Jacob Markstrom from Calgary. That didn't work out. Before that, there was rumors of Connor Hellebuck. Apparently, a couple of deals were sent towards the Winnipeg Jets, who rebuffed whatever those deals were. And now their big acquisition, Jake Allen, who was a 2A or 3 goalie on a team that is, 3rd or 4th last in the standings right now and struggling. Does Jake Allen make the New Jersey Devils a playoff team? No. It just feels like they raised the white flag. They didn't do anything. Like, I don't even believe Jake Allen solves the goaltending problem. They still got to go get a goaltender in the summer. So I don't know how anybody can look at the New Jersey Devils, a team that was a borderline playoff team heading into the trade deadline, and they did nothing. A team that's probably the most disappointing team in the NHL this year because there was big expectations, especially after the season that Hughes had. I just think it's the New Jersey Devils that are the losers, and the Vegas Golden Knights are your winners.
Fair enough.
Just an honorable mention. I think the Jets too. Maybe we forget the Monahan because it was done about a year or so ago, but also the Tyler Toffoli, and you add that to Scheifele, Ehlers, and Connor, and everybody else in that squad. Big 4 on the blue line, and arguably the best goalie in the league. I like what they did as well.
Yeah, and arguably the Jets, I mean, they probably would have had the best trade deadline, the most traditional. Just Vegas seems to be that team that you're like, okay, they're up to the cap. They're a cap team. They're a good team. And then they just go out and acquire these guys. And you're like, how'd they get them?
The cap doesn't exist.
I remember when they got Pietrangelo, it was the same thing. I'm like, how are they players for Pietrangelo? They're at the cap, and they always manage to find a way to make it happen. So
they made some tough decisions too, right? They had to move on from
sure.
I think Riley Smith was there for a little bit. He was pretty productive. Max Pacioretty had some pretty good seasons too. So it's impressive that they, when it's time to cut the cord, they cut the cord, man. They move on.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Marc-Andre Fleury is another example.
Marc-Andre Fleury, and they're gonna have some decisions. Marcia is a free agent at the end of the year. He's gonna probably get a massive contract. Yeah. So it'll be interesting going forward. All right. Let's move on to question number 4, brought to you by EA Fitness. EA Fitness, I was on their Instagram page, and just to show you how different EA Fitness does fit in stuff in the fitness game, they've partnered with a photographer, a wedding photographer, and they have a wedding package. Like, what kind of gym has a wedding package? So you could pay this photographer as your you pick this photographer as your wedding photographer, but then you get like 3 months at the gym to like tone up after you're done. After your honeymoon, you come back and you have a free gym membership. It's actually pretty cool. You can check them out at eafitness.inc on Instagram. They're always doing cool things. They're always out of the box ideas. They're not just your normal gym, and it's pretty wild. Like I literally probably every week I go on there and I look and I see something new that I haven't seen before in terms of marketing, in terms of just fun things that they're doing at this gym. So kudos to them. So check them out, eafitness.inc on Instagram. All right. Question number 4. We'll go with the Habs question here. We're in about year 3 or year 2, depending on how people see. There's a bit of a debate on what year they're actually in right now of the rebuild. But I just want to know, how do you guys think the rebuild's going so far?
I think it's going beautifully. I'm not going to lie to you. I think the big mistake was Sam Montembeault last year, because that's probably, you don't have him, you probably have Leo Carlson or somebody else or Fantilli on this roster. So that's the main mistake. That's the one mistake that I'm going to say that Kent Hughes and his crew did. But look, I think Suzuki's taken a step forward into being that number 1 center. He's almost a point per game player. The trades that Ken Hughes has done is just ridiculous, whether it's the Petrie deal, which, I mean, I don't know how many assets we've acquired by trading and then reacquiring Jeff Petrie. The Newhook deal, I like what I see in Alex Newhook. I think he's fast, he's quick. You know, on a great team, he'll be a third-line center that'll be very productive, and you'll get what you need from that third line with a guy like Alex Newhook. He's not super overpaid. I think there's a lot of good parts to this team. Matheson has turned into a steady, really good, you know, 2 NHL defensemen. I think the back end's going to be great for a long time. They're building from the back out. They're not that far away, to be honest with you, as crazy as it sounds. And I've been very critical of the Montreal Canadiens, and I've been critical of the product that's on the ice this year. But I don't think Josh Anderson's going to have a year like he did again next year. He's too big. He's too fast. He'll be better next year. If we can get a scoring winger to put on that top line or the second line, and we get a full season from Kirby Dach, the Montreal Canadiens are on pace to be competing for a playoff spot next year, as crazy as it sounds. So I'll say they're right on track. They still need a big time player. Are they going to get him in free agency? The war chest is filled with draft picks now. They can maybe package some draft picks and go get a guy. I like the way it looks. I think now we're almost at the crescendo where we're close. We're gonna get that, maybe the last 2-3 moves that are gonna put the team into the playoffs, and I think it might happen, if not this year, the year after.
Perfect. Simon?
I think it's going good, and I think that the one of the things that probably you won't get enough credit for is that the utter disaster that Marc Bergevin laid out the last 6 months of being a general manager, with the Gallagher extension, the Armia extension, and the Hoffman acquisition.
Dvorak as well, the Dvorak acquisition.
But now, you look at the lineup, and, Cole Caulfield is a Marc Bergevin, Logan Mailloux, Lane Hudson, those guys coming up, the Caden Gooley, all Montembeault, all part of that Marc Bergevin regime. So a little bit of that is, the draft picks that Marc Bergevin maybe didn't see themselves play out are starting to come to a little bit of fruition. Clearly, the Kotkaniemi one is one they'd like to have back. But like George said, I think you want to see progression. I think you're seeing it with Nick Suzuki. I think you're seeing it with Slafkovsky. The Kirby Dach is a giant question mark. If you can get what we saw out of Kirby Dach for 4 periods, but it was a damn good 4 periods. I think you bring a little stability to that line. I think you're good on the back end. You got Harris and Struble and a whole bunch of other guys. I think there'll be a deal to be made from there to maybe get a little bit of firepower up front. I think they're going in the right direction. I think if you put the Ottawa Senators lineup next to theirs on paper, probably the Ottawa Senators lineup is more skilled, or you would think is better, but that hasn't played itself out on the ice. And I think a lot has to do with who's behind the bench. And it's not a knock at Jacques Martin. He inherited that club. He didn't get a chance to build that club. He didn't get a chance to implement any of his systems. He got thrown into an absolute mess. They need to get it right in the offseason, where I think the Canadians got it right with their coach 2 summers ago. I think he's the right coach for the job. And I think it's just progression. A couple of things will play into their favors. Sabres will continue to trend upwards. You're hoping at some point the Tampa Bay Lightning trend downwards, and maybe eventually the Boston Bruins will have a bad season. So a couple of things in play before you're a playoff team. But I think from the blue line in, you're content, and, a piece or 2 away to being a playoff team, not to running the Atlantic Division with an iron fist. I think there's still ways away from there.
All right. And that's we'll keep with the Habs for question number 5. Brought to you by Vivaldi, best bring your own wine restaurant in all of Montreal, on Boulevard Gouin in Pierrefonds. Just go see them. They're the best. They're very, very good. They have pizza. They have all sorts of food, pasta, anything you really like. Go tell Steve and Dave that the starters sent you. All right. Final question of this show. Habs. I want to know what the Habs MVP this season and also their most disappointing player.
I think the MVP is a gimme. I think it's got to be Nick Suzuki. Spent a whole lot of time with a void at one of the wings, and that's before they put in Slavkovsky into that spot. And it's not like Slav is just running away with it at a point-a-game player. I think he's been better, but there was a part of the beginning of the year where there was a revolving door there, and then coach finally put all three of them together, and they got something. And there's been a stretch where Cole Caulfield hasn't been able to find the back of the net either. I think he gets the heavy lifting. I think he gets the McAvoy matchup. He gets the Hedman matchup. He gets the Ekblad matchup. He gets the Morgan Riley matchup. I'm not sure if there's an NHL centerman who gets has to do more of the heavy lifting on a team with less around them. Like I'm sure Nathan McKinnon has a lot of heavy lifting to do, but also has probably the world's best defenseman on his blue line, Ratnan, who scores 50 goal, who has scored 50 goals in a season in his career. So Nick Suzuki does a lot of the heavy lifting. I don't think he gets a night off, doesn't miss any games. And again, not blessed with a whole bunch of firepower. Like everybody's content that the power play is better, but the power play has peaked like at 50, like, I don't know, 18, 19. It's not like the power play is a top 10 power play. So even there, it's not that easy for him to find points. And somehow he does. So I'll say Nick Suzuki, and I don't think it's close. You want to go with the winner there, George?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to say Nick Suzuki as well. I think that's that's a 2-foot putt here. Nick Suzuki's headed for a career year in goals, assists, and points. And as you said, without a winger for half the year. And the scary part is Caulfield hasn't had a monster year. I mean, he's having an okay year, but he's not exactly a defensive dynamo, and he's not a guy that's lighting up the lamp. So Nick Suzuki, I think, is having just a tremendous year, and his development this year has been unbelievable. I think that has a lot to do with Martin St. Louis. So for sure, it's Nick Suzuki. If I'm forced to just name another guy, because I think it's important to kind of not go with the total obvious one here, I think Mike Matheson has been stellar. Because the point you made about Nick Suzuki, I can make for Matheson here. Because Matheson's got to go up against Connor McDavid. He's got to go up against Austin Matthews. He's got to play the big minutes. He's got to be on the power play. He's got to be on the penalty kill. And Mike Matheson has been thrown into that with a lot of young defensemen. And as we've seen, there's a lot of growing pains with young defensemen. So Mike Matheson, I feel is, if not for Nick Suzuki, would be, the guy that would be the MVP for this team. As far as a loser or a disappointment, I won't call him a loser. I'll say, Josh Anderson's been a mess this year, and I don't know how much of it is that he's just been snake bitten because he's had a ton of opportunities, some crazy power play, some crazy breakaways, and just stuff he's missed, open nets, and just weird stuff. He's never been really a finisher, though, right? He's never been a guy that's put a season together where he's put together 40, 35 goals. That's not really been him. But I feel like for an NHL hockey player, when your confidence isn't there, and I feel like his confidence isn't there watching him, it's not going to get better. And I think the only way that gets better is a reset of the season. Take some time off, go do something else, come back next year, start fresh, maybe get an early goal, and then have a much better season, because he's been terrible. And I remember last year talking at the trade deadline, and we were saying how we wouldn't want to trade a guy like Josh Anderson, because if this team ever does make the playoffs, Josh Anderson is the kind of guy you want in the playoffs. He's a big, rugged winger that goes to the net, carries the puck. He causes problems for teams, but right now he's untradeable. So that's crazy. To go from a guy that everybody wanted and the Montreal Canadiens didn't want to trade to a guy that right now is untradeable is unthinkable to me. So Josh Anderson's got my vote most disappointing.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I know that Brendan Gallagher had a stretch there for like 20 games where he didn't score a goal, but you're expecting more out of Josh Anderson. And with Brendan Gallagher, you may be expecting more, but the reality is I don't think you're going to get much more. You're going to get a high compete, easy to coach. And I'm not saying Josh Anderson's tough to coach, but there's some nights that I don't think that he's engaged. You can watch a period or two and wonder if he's out there. Was he part of the game day lineup? So the struggle is real. It's crazy because I agree with George. There's ample opportunities to find the back of the net, and he didn't. I thought there'd be a little bit of a reset after that 1 week break that they had, the All-Star break. I'm like, okay, he'll come back. You got 40 games left. Just bang out 17 goals in 40 games, man. That's good. That's a 34 goal prorated season. Come into October of 2024 and take it from there. You look at other guys that have struggled. Like I said, Gallagher, maybe the goal total is okay if he can hover around the 20 mark. But to Gallagher's defense, he'll do other things. He'll hang around the blue ice. He'll get engaged. He'll draw a penalty. Whereas I find with Josh Anderson, with that speed and that size and that physicality, you can dominate a game. Well, I'm not sure if you could dominate a game, but you could be a real factor in the game. And when it's all said and done, 0 goals, 0 assists, and 0 points, but you could have still been a factor out there, knock a guy down, some of that physicality, stretch the defense with your speed, whole bunch of stuff. And I don't think we've seen enough of that. All the tools are there. All the assets are there. You're just hoping that this time next year, we're not having this discussion. And as early as October 2024, he turns it around and starts being productive again, because the Canadiens are going to need him. They're not blessed. So Nick Suzuki's not going to finish with a point a game. So you'll finish another season without anybody who's a point a game. You're going to need production from Kirby Dach. You're going to need production from Newhook. You're going to need production from Cole Caulfield. Team's not good enough to have one of its top 6 players being void of at least a 15-goal season.
But listen, Simon, you have to understand something about Josh Anderson. I mean, I can remember his draft year when he was coming out from the London Knights, and that London Knights team was filled with talent. You had Domi, Tarnav, you had Mitch Marner was on that team. I think Michael McCarron was a guy that we drafted off that team. There's a ton of names. I think half of that roster became NHL players. Christian Dvorak was on that team. And I can remember that when Columbus drafted him, they were saying that he has that potential to be a 40-goal scorer every year. And the knock on him was that he never quite put it together in junior. In junior, he was a 25-goal scorer. So it's kind of weird because you see all the tools, Simon. You see what he's capable of, but every year it's almost the same. It's like a broken record that and this year is absolutely the worst. But every year we're like, but he can do more. He can do more. We're into like season 9 of his career. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen, but he's definitely capable. He's proven that he's capable to score 20 to 25 goals, but is he ever going to be that first line power winger? It doesn't look like it.
Fair enough. Only time will tell, I guess. But thank you, boys. Thank you, gentlemen. Don't forget, everyone, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at the Starter 690. And stay tuned. We're going to have some cool, fun content probably throughout the week. So thanks, boys.
Ciao, boys.
Take care, Dave. Take care, Simon.